All right, Doctor Who fans, we have to. I'm just not gonna mess about here and just go straight into the action, really, because this story, the Wishwell, being the first of the two-parter for this two-parter finale for this year. Obviously, there's a lot riding in this finale because of the fact mainly this finale is going to be the outcome of whether Shooty stays or whether Shooty leaves, considering the BBC hasn't said anything, Plus hasn't said anything. We haven't even heard from Shooty Gatwa himself whether he's staying on board on Doctor Who or not. He's been very silent since the Eurovision, since pulling away from Europe, from doing that during Eurovision. He hasn't really said a lot since then, and a lot of us are wondering, is that a sign that he might be going? Well, I'm hoping we'll hear something from him soon enough, but it doesn't look like it's going to be happening anytime soon. So so these two episodes are riding pretty much whether he will stick around. And I'm wondering if this entire two-part finale determine where he stands when it comes to his future with the show, which is kind of scary because I know there's going to be a lot of Doctor Who fans who are going to say, they want Shooty to stay, but I feel like this finale, there's a lot riding on it about where the show goes from here. So that's why it's going to be one of those important finales in the show's history for sure. We need to. I want to sort of kind of get something off of my chest a little bit regarding this finale. Part of this story, the Doctor acts like a human being. He refers himself as John Smith, which is something that he did in Human Nature. The reason why I bring up Human Nature is because, of course, put his Time Lord DNA into a fog watch, he basically become a human being. He doesn't really have any memories of him being the Doctor. He just thinks he was a human being all his life. He kind of behaved it like that for most of the story. Like, it almost felt like a Human Nature situation where we basically see him in present day. After we see him present day, he wakes up, he ends up being in a relationship with Belinda, with the child Poppy. That seems a bit odd. Yeah, that's the part that you'll get what I'm talking about here, about the fact he wakes up in a relationship with Belinda, even though they were companions for the last few episodes. Then he ends up, now obviously now Poppy seems to be a part of their family, even though Poppy we already know is a space baby. So technically, that's not necessarily true. The Doctor and Belinda had a child. That didn't ever really happen in the first place. So already you're losing me in that narrative. And then next thing you know, it's just I don't. And then you've got this whole thing where tables don't do that, where the Doctor finds out that by having doubt, cups fall through the table and spat. Which again, first to what Rogue said on the television when he warned the Doctor, tables do that, and he's right. He's totally right. Yeah, but again, about the Doctor and Belinda stuff, I just find it weird how last week's episode we came out of that moment where the Doctor's and Belinda are in the TARDIS doors explode, and then all of a sudden they basically are in this relationship and they don't remember what happened to them. It almost felt like they got memory wiped by the doors of the TARDIS, because you'll notice that there hasn't been any point in this story where we have seen the TARDIS, and we've always wondered what happened to the TARDIS after the doors blew open in last week's story, and yet we didn't get any hints whatsoever as to what happened with the TARDIS. We don't even know if it survived. We don't know if it got blew up. We don't know if it's parked somewhere. We don't know nothing. You would think we would have got some detail or some intel instead of being told where the TARDIS was, we're left with the Doctor not remembering who he is, acting like he's human, John Smith, like he wiped his Time Lord DNA, now thinks that he's in a relationship with Belinda, even though they're still having doubts about things that's going on around them. And then obviously he would have some doubts when he sees Ruby Sunday for the first time. Ruby Sunday is against everything that's happening because she seems to have little flashbacks here and there of her and the Doctor, and her sort of anger towards Conrad, which clearly she still has a vendetta against him because she doesn't trust him for what Conrad did, and she felt that he's responsible for it, which that's the case because, well, he kind of wished it to not be in the Doctor's reality. He wanted a reality of his own, and that's exactly what he got thanks to the Rani. Bizarre opening scene, very, very bizarre moment between the Doctor and Belinda, the fact they're acting and they're in the relationship, and then, it almost felt like he wiped his Time Lord memory, even though his memories were in him the entire time. He just needed to be prompted to remember. That's the part that I find a bit confusing about this whole story, and I wish they could have elaborated this a little bit further, in my opinion, because I mean, it's a great, it's a great concept. So, the Doctor being back as a human being concept is great. Could have had at least some concept to how he lost his memory, because that's the part that I was waiting for. I was waiting for like, oh, how did he get? But we didn't get that. We just got like, oh, he lost his memory. He goes to work coincidentally in a unit tower that's now named something else by the realms of reality. God forbid me. And then and then you have Kate Stewart looking like she's in a newspaper department, which honestly looks ridiculous, but there you go. And then you have Susan Tryon as the coffee woman, like they're in the 60s, which they were acting like they're in the 60s in a newspaper department. It's mental. It really is mental how the unit tower, which it still says unit outside of the tower, by the way, they're acting like they're newspaper writers now. Very bizarre. Very, very bizarre situation there. I don't know why they, you would think if they're like a newspaper department, they would have gotten rid of the unit logo in the first place, because technically they're not unit, they're a completely different company in this Wish world. So why is the unit logo still in the building? You see what I'm getting at? I'm getting at, like, if you're gonna do this storyline where it's supposed to be a completely different business, you would get rid of the unit logo because they're not unit anymore. I don't know. I just felt like they could have established that, hey, this is a completely different version of Earth sort of concept. But never mind. I guess that. But that's why I felt really confused by that whole part. And then of course we've got the Rani situation with and then obviously you got the Rani and Mrs. Flood. Obviously Mrs. Flood gives Conrad the sandwich and obviously has control of the baby that just so happens to be a god, or one of the gods of the pantheon, who's the god of wishes, which is just basically a child, even though we don't really know what this person's going to look like outside of being a child. I'm guessing it's just a child. I'm guessing because considering the fact several years later from when the Rani picked up the child, he would have been like a child, like a boy or a fully grown person by this point. It was still a child. Don't know how that happens, but there you go. And then of course you have the fact that the Rani has the Vindicator, and again, how did she get the Vindicator? Because correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't the Doctor the last person to have the Vindicator? So how the hell would she know where the Vindicator was? You see what I mean? Like you see this continuity loop that's missing. Like you're showing her with the Vindicator. Doctor was the last person to have, and it was inside the TARDIS. How would she know where the TARDIS is? And yet we don't see any scenes of her going to the TARDIS to get the Vindicator. You see what I mean? Like, you need to show this stuff, because this is the thing that I think Russell's missing out here, is that if you don't show these scenes, really going to understand why she's got certain things in the first place. Because I understand you want Doctor Who fans to have imagination and stuff, but at the same time, it would be nice to get some continuity how she got that in the first place, because unless it's a replica, which I mean, I guess it could be, but if it's actually the one that the Doctor is using, technically she knows where the TARDIS is. So therefore, she should have kidnapped the TARDIS the entire time if she knew where it was. You see what I mean? Like if she knew the TARDIS was just, she would have taken it like the Master did when he returned as John Sim. Instead, she just left it there wherever it was. It probably might be in the Underverse by this point, and we'll get to that in a moment. But you see what I mean? Like, there's some continuity stuff in the story that's missing, that needs to be there when what needs to be there for us to actually publicly understand where we're going with this. Because I feel like they tried to explain it, they tried to put this image in front of us without explaining how and I think that's the missing parts of this story that should have been there. I mean, chances are it's probably going to be deleted scenes in the upcoming DVD, and that's probably how we're going to find out missing, and what should have been in this story would actually explain why, would actually probably give us a proper explanation as to what the hell was going on between the whole Doctor and Belinda relationship and what happened to the TARDIS, and the Rani found the TARDIS. Guarantee you that's going to be a deleted scene. And it'll be like, why couldn't you just put this in the episode? It was right there for you to put in, and you chose not Doctor do it? Like, why? You see what I mean? Like, but anyway, that's a yeah. I mean, I trust Russell. Don't get me wrong, but I just think he could have added more beef to it. I really could. Thinking if he added more explanation, it made sense to people like me, who's like looking certain things and thinking, what? You know what I mean? Nevertheless, obviously, this whole thing leads up to obviously we do see connecting with Shirley, who's now an outside alongside Ruby, people who really fit in the world. And also, by the way, there was a Doctor Who YouTuber in this scene. Pretty sure you know who I'm referring to. If you know the YouTuber, you'll know who I'm talking about. Who was in the background, the scenes where Ruby was talking to Shirley, other disability characters as well as other outsiders who were literally gathering for a meeting. You'll know that done a video about it. You could go and look at on their channel on YouTube if you have. Probably put a link in the description, by the way, if you want to see, just go to their channel, because I think they have done a video about their cameo by now. If you're really interested to know how he got that cameo, yeah, it was really cool to see that. Because funny enough, I do watch his videos. Funny enough, from time to time, so it's really cool to see he was in the. Probably a huge privilege for him, asked by Russell to be a part of this. But then, of course, there's Ruby and Shirley, and then this other person that we met with Shirley were about to begin their plan in trying to cut off the broadcast for Conrad. All of a sudden, I guess we can't call him the Doctor just yet, but John Smith, along with Belinda, end up getting captured by Mrs. Belinda gets captured by Mrs. Floods and her team, and then the Doctor ends up getting called by Belinda because of his doubts, as John Smith was starting to have doubts about what was going on around him. And then eventually, Mrs. Flood would eventually bring John Smith and Belinda to the Rani, and this is where the Rani basically tries to get him to remember the whole, like, oh, you should know who I am sort of thing, and try to reveal to him that, hey, I'm the Rani. Basically reveal, like, the symbol of Rassilon to him. He couldn't remember anything, and then he couldn't remember all the droids that she has in the room. Couldn't remember quite a lot of stuff, and then eventually he remembers Conrad, who, when she showed Conrad to him and said, oh, I made this entire world by my wish, he was trying to struggle to remember elements of they were saying, and then eventually he has flashbacks of the Rani. He starts to gather information sort of been sleeping on for pretty much since being in the part of this world, and then eventually he would have flashbacks of Katie O'Mara's version of the Rani, who that's the last time the Doctor saw the Rani, so of course it's going to have those flashbacks. And then eventually it would lead to, and then of course, Rani would be like, oh, you don't have a child, referring to them having Poppy. But even though the Doctor does say towards the end, oh, Poppy is real, so yes, we know that it's real because of the space baby stuff. Be interested to see how Poppy gets out of the situation that she's in. Hopefully we'll find out whether she survives it in next week's story. But as soon as the Rani shows John Smith the outside of the Underverse, the whole Earth howling under the Underverse, let's not forget the fact that Rani did also mention the fact who was trying to come out while she was trying to bring out from the Underverse was the returning Omega. Yes, Omega, an enemy from the Three Doctors, and that we even last saw during the Five Doctors story, the Arc of Infinity. So yes, Omega is now making a return to, I mean, even though we didn't see the face, we saw Omega logo, which happens to be the real life Omega logo that we've seen in real life, and you'll have seen it in some of the shops. That logo is now being brought into Doctor Who, so pretty much confirms we are going to be encountering Omega in Doctor Who very soon, which is going to be very interesting to see how he arises in the world of Doctor Who. It was in that moment he starts to remember and has flashbacks of all his previous incarnation, finally remembers who he is, finally. It took like most of the story for him to figure that out. As soon as he figures it out, he gets trapped outside. The Rani was like, oh, I can't afford you to find a way to stop. So then she had disconnecting platform where the Doctor was. Who would ever know she has the ability to disable that part of the ship, to the point that now the Doctor is crashing down to the mat and possibly going into the Underverse. And then, of course, Ruby, knowing that Ruby and Shirley are underneath him, so he's got to make sure he's safe before crashing down. It's going to be very interesting to see whether he'll notice Ruby in the distance. Hopefully he does. The fact that he tries to, yell for the Roddy, and then, just everything's just... And then obviously you also see like the whole world's crashing underneath her, and she's getting really scared, like she's starting to remember. Maybe Mel Bush is starting to remember as well. I'll be interested to see what Kate Stewart's reaction is to all this. We didn't see her reaction in this moment. I would imagine that she's into all of the stuff around. But yeah, honestly, it's crazy. It was a crazy cliffhanger, a really good cliffhanger to end. Absolutely, because of course they're not going to. Chances are we're probably not. I don't know. Maybe we might get a trailer for Reality War, but I think the likelihood is we're probably not going to get a trailer, and they're going to keep it basically not advertise. They're going to need to advertise it, really. They're going to need to do something to advertise it, because I was going to say they weren't going to advertise it, but then that would be wrong, because you're going to want people to watch it because of how important this final part of the story is going to be. Because what if Ncuti Gatwa regenerates? Yeah, you're going to want people to watch. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they advertise this, because they're going to basically advertise it without spoiling huge moments in next week's story, etc. So it'll be interesting to see how they trailer together without spoiling whatever's happening next week. Nevertheless, like I said, I mean, I like the cliffhanger. I love the cliffhanger. I love what they did with the cliffhanger. I thought that was really, really, really... I think the thing that really confuses me the most of the story is the way that they set it up, the whole Dr. and Belinda stuff, as like them being a cop with Poppy. That, again, that still confuses. They were living like they're in the 60s and the 70s. Like, I find that very bizarre. Yeah, I still can't get my head around that part. Like, I can't get my head around the fact Doctor and his companion are now in a relationship at the top of this story. After we saw last episode, TARDIS doors blew up, so we don't know whether they got hit by the TARDIS doors and they lost their memories. That's what led to them coming a couple. I have no idea. They need to make some continuity towards this, because I can't get my head around this whole, like, how they ended up being there sort of scenario. Either way, I don't mind the story. I don't mind the story at all. I just think it was just way to build up to the Doctor remembering who he is, sort of thing. Which I understand they were trying to do, like a Human Nature, like like somewhat of a sequel to Human Nature, but in present, I think they confused a lot of elements, how they went about it. I think they explained it a bit better. I just think there was some pointers that were missing in this story, in certain sections of the story that could have made it a little bit more better, in my opinion. But it's just, that's how I feel. I just feel like there was stuff missing that should have been there, and for some reason it was cut, and I don't know why they cut it. I think they were wrong to, because they could, if with that extra few minutes, really help make things understand people who were probably going to be watching this story fused and be wondering, how did the Doctor and Belinda get, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to need something to make sense of it. There isn't really anything there to make sense of it. I just feel like there was stuff missing that should have, it was obviously cut for just because they wanted 45 minutes, which in my opinion that they went for a 45-minute story. I think they could have 50 minutes and it would have much better explained what the hell was going on. You could have kept the finale, added a few more explanations to parts that needed to be explained better, and then you would have had a really, really good out of that. I think a lot of people would be like, yes, finally we get it. That's the only downside of the story, is that they just could have added it to the explanation parts. That's what I think they could have done, especially with the whole Doctor and Belinda in being a couple sort of thing. I think that could have been explained better. That's all I think they could have done. But either way, let me know in the comment section what you make of this story in the comment section below, because I'll be curious to see how everyone feels of Story Wish World, because I mean, it's going to be the final episode this year to air at 8 a.m, because we're not going to see another 8 a.m. cast, I don't think, for future episodes of Doctor Who. I don't think we're going to see that. I think it's going to come out on the night going forward. I think that's going to be a decision they're going to stick with going forward. Yeah, this is pretty much the last time they've released an episode early in the morning, and then for future episodes, it's now going to be as it airs on BBC One going forward, which I think is actually a smarter decision, because it means that everyone's watching at the same time, and I think that's what Doctor Who should. Everyone watches it at the same time and they experience it at the same time. That's how it should, and I think they should stick with this decision going forward, because I feel like it's just better. I feel like it's a better, even though I will admit, maybe of course, having the episodes early did make it easier for me to get reviews out a little bit, to be able to schedule the reviews and stuff. I actually just prefer the old methods. Doctor Who having the episode broadcast live, everyone watching it as it goes out on BBC One, and then having the reviews out afterwards, like I did in the past. Was also, I didn't mind that. I didn't mind that at all. I was used to it. Next week is going to be the last part of the story. Obviously, 66 minutes. I have a good feeling they are going to hopefully give us a really banger of a story, hopefully. And also find out what Ncuti's outcome is, whether Ncuti is still the Doctor after this story, or whether we are going to find out who the new Doctor is going to be, which would basically mean if we do get a new Doctor, definitely expect BBC News to go crazy about it. I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of articles and a lot of video segments about the new Doctor from BBC News next weekend, if it does happen. So I'm just telling you now, just in case, prepare yourself, just in case we do get a new Doctor Who during next week's story, BBC News goes crazy about it. It's going to happen, trust me. There's going to probably be an interview that's going to go out, maybe not too long after, well, it's obviously going to have to go out around 10 o'clock, because that's when BBC News usually airs, following Doctor Who, around that time. Probably going to air around that time, BBC News, and that's when. But then, of course, the BBC News channel will also have interviews with the new Doctor as well. So there's going to be interviews coming from, and obviously ITV is going to pick up on it. Channel 4 is going to be picking up on it. So it's going to be everywhere if we have a new Doctor. And I guarantee you we'll probably have an interview next weekend, this new Doctor. I can't imagine them broadcasting the regeneration and then not having an interview broadcast that weekend, next weekend. They have a new Doctor. So I'm expecting them to have an interview ready to go by next weekend if, again, a new Doctor does get cast. Be interested to see who that will be. Whether, if it is a surprise regeneration, who is it going to be? Who is going to replace Ncuti Gatwa? I have no idea who they've picked, but I like to be hopeful it's going to be good, whoever they picked. I'm hoping they've picked someone who is not only capable of the job, but also hopefully is going to be like a role model to the fans, I hope. I like to be hopeful that we can get more of that in this show, because I mean, Ncuti does it great, and I'd be interested to see if more actors can be more role models to different cultures of the Doctor Who fan base that feel represented and feel seen during Doctor Who, which is what Ncuti wanted when he took over the role. So I hope that legacy continues with whoever takes over. That's only if that does. If it doesn't, then obviously we'll have Ncuti to look forward to whenever next episodes are coming out. But anyway, thanks for watching, and we'll see you all in the news videos, and of course, view next week for the series finale, Reality War.